Hi everyone, welcome to my channel and welcome to my second update for my Pan Those Eyeshadows project. I am super excited. So I have my 5 palettes here and the 5 shades that we had in for this month. And I'm super excited to go through each of the shades. But first, just a quick recap on my rules. I am very laid back when it comes to this project because I know myself and I know I won't work on a shade continuously if I don't think I'm going to hit pan on it. I get bored with shades. So my rules are 1, obviously hit pan if I think I can. 2 is use the shadow 10 times. And 3 is have the shadow in for 2 or more months. So I'm going to go through this stack here in the order that I rolled them in, talk about the shades, and if they will be rolling out. So first up we have my Milani Soft and Sultry palette, and I had the shade Soft Touch in for this project. So that shade is right here. It is just a really nice light brown matte shade. And I only used this once this past month for a total of 4 uses in this project. I really wish it had been more, but since I did reach the 2-month mark with this palette, I am going to be rolling this shade out just to refresh this project a little bit, but I did get a small handful of uses out of this shade. I would have liked more, but this is a shade that I will have no problem using just on my own whenever I feel like reaching for it, so it's not a huge deal. Next up we have my Nabla Poison Garden palette, which has been in since January, just like the last one, and for this palette I had the shade Honey. So Honey is this center shade right here, and as you can probably see, this does not look used at all. I only used it once this past month for a total of 1 use in this project, but I did have it in for 2 months, so I will be rolling this one out as well. I know this isn't as exciting as if I was to hit pan or at least get a good usage goal out of this, but like I said, I know myself, I know my makeup preferences, and sticking with the shadow that I know I'm not going to hit pan on just wears me out, so I just want to refresh some of these shades that have been in the project for a couple months, and this is one of them. Alright, another shade that has been in since January. This one comes from my Ulta Ravenclaw palette, and it is the shade Natural. So that shade is right up here in the corner, and I used this one once this past month for a total of 2 uses in this project. And once again, since I did reach the 2-month mark, I am going to be rolling this shade out. I honestly would just kind of forget this shade was in the project. It's a super easy shade to use. I like to use these shades to blend out my looks, but I just wasn't reaching for it, and a lot of palettes have this type of shade, so if I'm reaching into a palette, I'll usually just use the shade that's in that one. So this one didn't get a ton of use from me, obviously, but it is still a nice shade, but I am ready to roll it out. Next up we have my Wet n Wild All Natural palette. So I had the 10th shade in from this palette, and that shade is right over here on the end, and as you can see I did hit pan in the shade, which I'm super excited about. I used it 5 additional times this past month for a total of 8 uses in this project. This palette is, I think, my oldest in my collection, so I definitely had some use on this before I rolled it into this project. It's many years old, so 8 uses might seem like a low number, but I've had this palette for so long and had some good use on it ahead of time that it only took me 8 uses within this project to hit pan, and I am so excited. I officially have 5 pans in this palette, and I am just so thrilled about that. So I will be rolling this shade out, but obviously this time it is for pan. Alright, then my last palette in is my Be Bella Cosmetics Sweet Sunflower palette, and this just rolled in last month, so I've only had it in for a month, and I had the shade Canyon. So Canyon is right down here, and I used it a total of 1 time this past month for a total of 1 use. I will obviously be keeping the shade in because it has only been in for a month. I would really like to get at least a few more uses out of the shade, but we will see. This isn't a palette that I gravitate towards overly much, but I am still going to try and make a conscious effort to at least use it a couple more times this next month before I inevitably roll it out. So those are the 5 shades I had in for February, and I am going to be rolling in 4 new shades, 3 because I hit the 2-month mark, and 1 because I hit pan. So I have my Pretty Random app here set from 1 to 985. That is the total number of eyeshadows I have in my collection. So if I roll one in that already has pan on it, I will just roll again. So our first number up is going to be 758. So 758 comes from my BH Cosmetics Miss Claus So Spoiled palette, and it is the shade Lit at Last. Next shade up is 338. So 338 comes from my Wet n Wild Stop Playing Safe palette, and it is shade number 9. Those are both blue shades, I believe, that I have rolled in, so that will be interesting. Next up is 908, a low number on my list, which means a newer palette. So that comes from my Nomad Province palette. I'm not even going to try and say the shade name because I will butcher it because it is a French name, but I will show you that in a moment. And the last shade I will be rolling in this month is 694, which comes from my Sigma Cinderella palette in the shade Fantasy. So I'm going to go grab all of those and be back to show you. Alright, I have the 4 palettes here, so I will just run through each of the shades that got rolled in. So first up is my BH Cosmetics Miss Claus So Spoiled palette. I absolutely love this palette, and the shade that got rolled in is Lit at Last, so this shimmery blue shade down here. I am pretty excited about that. That is not a shade that has gotten a ton of use from me from this palette, but it will be fun to reach for this palette, and I'm definitely going to have some fun shades in this month. So next up, my Wet n Wild Stop Playing Safe palette, and the shade we rolled in is shade number 9, which is this dark blue shade over here. It has a bit of shimmer to it. That is going to be a tough shade for me to use. I do not wear blues all that often, and super dark blues like this intimidate me a little bit, but I will likely just use it as a liner, see how that goes, but I am excited about this and getting some use out of this palette as well. So next up, my Nomad Province palette. First off, can we take a minute to appreciate this packaging? Every time I see this palette, I just fall in love. I think it's so pretty. And the shade that we rolled in is the last shade right here, so this dark kind of charcoal black matte shade. Super excited about that. I know I just rolled out a really dark black matte shade, but I actually do enjoy using these shades to deepen up my looks, use them as liner, and I just love this palette so much. So I am looking forward to getting some good use out of it. And last up, my Sigma Cinderella palette, we had the shade Fantasy, which is this shade over here, a shimmery purple shade. So quite a bit of color this month. I am a little bit nervous, but also very excited to see what we can do with these shades. So those are the shades that I will have in for March. I am super excited. I love this project just to get some good use out of these shades. I really don't think I am going to hit pan on any of the ones that have been rolled in. So likely you will not be seeing a pan from me next month, but I can suspect that I will be rolling out the Sweet Sunflower shade just because it will have been in for 2 months. So there is constantly going to be some rotation within this project, just not necessarily pans every month, which I'm fine with. I just really like rotating through my eyeshadows, and if I can hit pan, that's great, but if I can just use some shades that maybe I wouldn't normally reach for, I love that as well. So let me know what you think of this project, what you think of the shades that I got in for this month. I will insert a picture of the color story so you all can see what that looks like. And yeah, like I said, a bit nervous about this month's color story, but I am eager to get some use out of these shades, see what I can do. So yeah, give this video a thumbs up if you did enjoy. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on any of my future uploads. And with all of that said, I will see you in my next video. Bye!